Hello everyone. The following presentation is a brief summary and analysis of Chapter 5 of Oscar Wilde's novel The Picture of Dorian Gray. Chapter 5 opens in the home of Sibyl Vane and her family. Sibyl is praising her Prince Charming to her mother. Mrs. Vane is nervous that Sibyl will forget her acting responsibilities that bring their household money, but Sibyl insists that love will conquer all need for money. She praises Dorian, bragging about his being of the upper class, his affection, and the fact that he can support them now instead of Mr. Isaacs, the theatre owner. However, Mrs. Vane reprimands her daughter for being foolish. Sibyl's love for Dorian is also superficial. It is merely based on his beautiful appearance and the fact that he is wealthy. In reality, her being of a lower class means she must be careful. If she gives up her independence, she could be ruined if things don't work out. However, she is willing to risk it all for love. Note the themes of influence, appearance versus reality, and the differences in class. With Sibyl's remembering that Dorian is of the upper class, she realizes that she must take into consideration the conventions of marriage. She suddenly believes she is unworthy and wonders why Dorian loves her. Mrs. Vane is skeptical of Dorian, but thinks of the wealth he might bring them. It is mentioned that Sibyl's brother, James, sometimes referred to as Jim Vane, is leaving for Australia. James is a stocky, thick-set young man who is very unlike his delicately featured sister. He is quite self-conscious about his rugged, poor-looking appearance compared to his pretty-looking sister. Despite their differences, Sibyl and James have a very close and loving sibling relationship. James asks Sibyl to come for a walk with him in the park. Sibyl agrees and leaves the room to get dressed. While she leaves the room, James voices his heated concerns about Sibyl to Mrs. Vane. Mrs. Vane assures Jim that she will look after Sibyl and that this Prince Charming is actually a perfect gentleman and very good looking. She says to Jim that this new relationship could lead to a good marriage. Jim is not convinced and asks his mother to promise to watch over Sibyl. It is important to remember that neither James nor his mother know Dorian Gray's real name. Jim and Sibyl leave to go for their walk in the park. Jim's suspicions of the danger Sibyl could be in and his strong desire to protect her establishes him as someone physically strong and powerful. His suspicion also raises the expectation that in some way Dorian will end up on Jim's bad side. As Jim and Sibyl take their walk, Jim is aware of the difference in their appearance. However, Sibyl is completely oblivious. She absent-mindedly chats about Jim's plans and makes small talk so that she can secretly think about Dorian. Jim is nervous to leave for Australia because he distrusts Sibyl's relationship with Dorian and their mother's shallow opinion of it. There's something else on his mind too. James has heard a rumour going around about which he's meant to ask his mother. Jim asks Sibyl about her new friend, and Sibyl tells him everything. Sibyl explains to her brother that she has found real love. Jim is suspicious, but Sibyl answers his concerns with a determined passion. She tells him that he will only understand when he finds love for himself one day. Sibyl assures her brother that she's the happiest she's ever been, and that just like he is starting a new adventure, so is she. As they are walking in the park, Sibyl thinks she sees her Prince Charming in the distance, and this is when Jim's fears return. Jim swears to kill Dorian if he ever mistreats Sibyl. Sibyl criticizes Jim for his aggressive attitude. She tells him that the only reason for his aggressive attitude is that he is just jealous and inexperienced. Jim reluctantly agrees that he wouldn't harm anyone who truly loves Sibyl. When the pair arrive home, Sibyl is meant to rest before her performance that evening, so they say their final goodbye before Jim leaves for Australia. James addresses the rumour he has been hearing, and he asks his mother directly whether she and his father had ever been married. Relieved that it is out in the open, Mrs. Vane says that they weren't married. She explains a situation similar to Sibyl's in which their father was an upper-class gentleman who was not free to marry her due to her being of a lower class. With sympathy for her, Jim comforts his mother. Considering that Sibyl could potentially be in a similar situation to what his mother was in with his and Sibyl's father, the concern for his sister resurfaces, and again he swears to kill anyone who mistreats Sibyl. Thank you for watching this presentation on Chapter 5 of The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I will be posting content on the rest of the novel soon.